This is Global Signals by Andrew Dremin. Deep dives and insights about retail and FMCG. Today, we're examining a specific failure in global retail supply chains.
Yeah, and it's a massive one. Global procurement teams are losing millions of dollars in emerging markets just because they read the wrong metrics.
Right. They confuse incoming tourist arrivals with local consumer purchasing power.
Exactly.
So you'll learn why relying on high-level macro statistics creates bad strategy. And we'll cover how packaging size and, local transit actually dictate retail success or failure.
Yeah, the transit physics part is really interesting.
It is, but we begin with the data that causes the initial error. Last year, Mexico received 42 million international tourists.
It's a huge number.
Right. And brand managers sit in an office, look at that massive inbound tourist number, and they make false assumptions about the domestic population.
Yeah, they see crowded airports in places like Cancun or, huge arrival numbers in Mumbai and Bangkok.
And they assume the entire country is ready for premium travel-sized products.
Which is a huge mistake. Because the reality of outbound travel is completely different.
Right. Only 21% of the population in Mexico travels abroad.
Yeah. And in India, it's only 3%.
Wow, just 3%.
Just 3%. So the domestic population just isn't taking international flights. But contrast this with Sweden.
Okay, let's look at Sweden.
So in Sweden, 99% of the population travels abroad.
Almost everyone.
Yeah.
But Sweden gets way fewer total incoming tourists than Mexico.
Right. But almost every single Swedish citizen actively needs travel-sized toiletries for their own international trips.
So the domestic consumer demand there perfectly matches the premium travel product.
Exactly. Whereas in places like India and Mexico, consumer demand is overwhelmingly domestic.
Which brings up a direct question. If inbound tourist numbers are so misleading, why do executives keep using them to forecast domestic retail demand?
Well, they just completely miscalculate the target market. They look at national arrival figures instead of, domestic budget limits.
And that breaks their distribution chains.
It breaks them from the very beginning. Because they misread the macro travel data, they ship the wrong physical products to local supermarkets.
Right, so brands ship thousands of cases of premium 50-milliliter travel toiletries into these local supermarket networks.
And 6 months later, those bottles sit untouched on the shelves. They become dead inventory.
They just sit there.
Yeah. The core retail mistake here is confusing a travel format with a cash flow format.
But on the surface, a 50-milliliter bottle and a 10-milliliter sachet look identical. I mean, they're both just small plastic containers filled with liquid. Why does that minor size difference cause total product failure?
Because the pricing model contradicts the local economic reality.
Okay, how so?
Well, the travel format is the 50-milliliter bottle. It costs between $3 and $6. It has very high profit margins and a low purchase frequency.
Because it targets affluent travelers with discretionary income.
Right. It's designed to solve a spatial constraint. It saves space and carry-on luggage.
But the cash flow format is completely different. That's the 10-milliliter sachet.
Exactly. The 10-milliliter sachet is designed to minimize absolute transaction cost. It only costs 5 to 15 cents.
So that the margin per unit is really low.
Yeah, so it requires high-volume sales.
Yeah.
Because it targets low-income workers.
The source material gives a really clear example of this in Mumbai.
Right, so imagine a factory worker in Mumbai buying evening groceries. She has exactly 15 rupees.
And she needs to wash her hair tonight.
Yes. So she buys a 10-milliliter sachet.
She can't afford to lock up 300 rupees in a large bottle.
No, she literally doesn't have the cash for that. And she definitely can't afford a premium $5 travel container.
She just has 15 rupees.
Exactly. So the brand is trying to sell an expensive convenience tool to a consumer who actually needs a basic cash management tool.
And when they miss that difference, they manufacture dead inventory.
Exactly.
But this misunderstanding goes beyond just how locals spend money. It also extends to how locals physically move.
Yeah, this is another huge blind spot. Low outbound travel numbers don't mean local populations stay in one place. Domestic populations move constantly.
Right. Millions of workers travel weekly or monthly in emerging markets. They visit families or work in neighboring cities.
But they don't use airplanes.
Right. They use inner-city buses, regional trains, motorbikes, and shared vans.
And the mode of transport changes everything about the packaging.
Because airline passengers care about TSA liquid limits. They need it under 100 milliliters, and they need small, rigid bottles.
Right. But bus and train passengers care about durability. They need flexible packaging that prevents leaks inside soft bags.
Yeah, it has to survive rough transit. It's like designing a rigid plastic bottle for a commuter taking a motorbike. It's exactly like designing a product for an airport security checkpoint that the customer will never walk through.
That's a perfect way to look at it. If a brand pushes airline-compliant packaging into regional transit hubs, it misses the domestic travel market entirely.
Because domestic commuters need durable pouches or refill packs.
Right. They don't need overpriced mini bottles built for aviation rules.
So, to prevent this dead inventory and fix these distribution failures, procurement teams must change how they evaluate international markets.
Yeah, and the data provides 5 rules for strategic distribution to fix this.
Okay, let's go through them. What is Rule 1?
Rule 1 is segment by street, not by country.
Because treating the country as one uniform zone guarantees dead inventory.
Exactly. Let's look at Cancun. You have a convenience store 2 blocks from a resort beach.
And that store needs 50 milliliter sunscreens for foreign visitors.
Right. But if you travel just 5 miles inland, you hit a local supermarket.
And they need cheap sachets for local families.
Yeah, sending premium airline stock to that inland store is a guaranteed failure.
Okay, so that's Rule 1. What is Rule 2?
Rule 2 is to map product size to financial behavior. You have to identify if the small size solves a spatial constraint or a financial constraint.
Like fitting in an airplane bag versus spending less total cash today?
Exactly. If it solves a space problem, you charge a premium and place it in tourist hubs.
And if it solves a cash problem, you optimize for a low unit price and put it in inland neighborhood stores.
Right. You map the physical product to the local behavior.
That brings us to Rule 3, which ties into the transit issue we discussed. Align packaging with local transport.
Yeah, brands have to adapt packaging materials to match regional bus routes and commuter trains.
Rather than standard Western travel standards.
Exactly. Western travel packaging assumes smooth, protected airline travel. But local transit demands flexible, durable materials.
So what's Rule 4?
Rule 4 is stop dumping regional excess stock.
Right. The text mentions Western brand managers often dump overproduced travel stock into high tourism developing markets.
Yeah, they do it to clear their corporate balance sheets.
Mhm.
But it completely destroys retailer trust when those products expire on the shelves.
Which perfectly leads to Rule 5. Track sell-through over sell-in.
Yes, distributors will buy extra inventory if they're offered heavy discounts.
And that creates really strong sell-in numbers on quarterly reports.
Exactly. But if the products don't actually move off the retail shelves, the brand suffers long-term damage.
Because sell-in is just the transfer of goods to the distributor.
Yeah.
Sell-through is what's sold to the actual consumer.
Right, so brands must audit point-of-sale data down to the individual store level.
I do want to ask about the motivation behind Rules 4 and 5, though.
Sure.
If brands know the products expire on shelves, why do they dump excess stock in the first place?
It's a structural flaw in the supply chain itself. Brands prioritize clearing their own balance sheets.
Right, they want to empty their warehouses.
Yeah, and they secure short-term sell-in numbers through distributor discounts. They ignore the actual consumer purchasing velocity on the ground.
So they just look at the spreadsheet assumptions instead of the reality on the street.
Exactly. A country with 42 million inbound tourists isn't an automatic growth market for travel-sized goods.
Right, you have to look at the 15 rupees in the worker's pocket. Or the rough luggage on the intercity bus.
Yeah. Or the exact store location 5 miles inland from the resort. If you ignore those ground-level realities, you'll constantly build dead inventory.
Which leaves you with a final question to consider today based on the source material. Global brands frequently misread 42 million inbound tourists as a domestic growth market.
And they rely on discounted sell-in data rather than actual store-level sales.
Right. So how many other successful quarterly reports in the FMCG sector are actually hiding millions of dollars of dead inventory sitting untouched on rural supermarket shelves?
It's a massive, multi-million-dollar question.
It really is. You were listening to Global Signals by Andrew Dremin, deep dives and insights about retail and FMCG.